Hey guys, it's Ellie Maxwell here with Amanda Robbins, and today we're going to show you the causes of the Civil War.
Slavery was a major role in a cause of the Civil War. If there were disagreements on if they should have slaves or not, it did cause many battles throughout the Civil War, and it was a bad time in history.
Economy was another important part of our nation's history. The North relied on businesses, industry, and manufacturing, while the South relied on farming things like tobacco and cotton, while the slaves picked all that.
The Compromise of 1850 was another reason. California is free. Utah and Mexico territory will be open to slavery.
The states' rights were another important part. The states wanted to have their own decisions and be free.
The Missouri Compromise. Maine was a free state now, and Missouri was a slave state. No slave states above the 30 degree latitude line.
Bleeding Kansas was another part. It was a series of violent events that we will learn about later.
The Underground Railroad was another cause of the Civil War. It helped slaves get to the north and out of brutal homes and into a safe place.
The election of Lincoln was a new party called the Republicans. The South was upset that the anti-slavery party won because now they wouldn't have any more slaves. Slavery was another reason for the states almost leaving the country, because some states thought that slavery should be expanded and some people thought that it should be abolished.
Another reason for the secession was 4 states, South Carolina, Texas, Mississippi, and Georgia, almost left the United States because of the disagreements of the cause of war.
The advantage of the Confederate was the leaders. They had really strong leaders. They had the home advantage and they knew where everything was. The disadvantages were that Europe did not recognize it. The gun-to-men ratio, so they had 32 guns for 1 man, and the trade.
For the Union, advantages was, again, the Union had strong leaders too. Another advantage was the population. And the third one is industry. The Union disadvantages were weak motivation, not fighting for a cause, or at least one they could understand. The officers not aggressive enough. Many failed to press their enemy when they had the advantage and an experience. Fighting on unfamiliar territory. Most Northerners had never been on the South Fork and they had poor communication. And the North believed the war would be over quickly, but it was not.
The first thing was the Missouri Compromise in 1820. Henry Clay came up with the idea of the compromise. The compromise included Maine as a free state and Missouri as a slave state. Above the 36/30 latitude line was free, and below that was a slave state.
Another event that sparked the Civil War was Bleeding Kansas. In 1854, a series of violent events after the Kansas-Nebraska Act as permanent slave supporters interact. Involved was pro-slavery and anti-slavery advocates. It was over a political debate for which if slavery should be allowed or not.
Robert E. Lee was the general of the Confederate Army from 1861 to 1865. He led for the rest of the war. In 1863, he invaded the North. He was defeated at the Battle of Gettysburg. He surrendered in 1865 after many battles in Virginia. He was in the Mexican-American War, the American Civil War, and he was in John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry.
Stonewall Jackson was one of the South's most successful generals in the war from 1861 to 1865. He graduated from the U.S. Military Academy in New York. He fought in the Mexican-American War, and after that, he led to pursue a teaching career. When his house was seceded from the Union in 1861, Stonewall joined the Confederate Army. He was known for his fearlessness and tenacity. While he was in the Confederate Army, he also served under General Robert E. Lee. The battles he fought in was the American Civil War, Fredericksburg, and lost an arm and died after he was accidentally shot by a Confederate troop at the Battle of Chancellorsville. The first major Civil War battle was Fort Sumter. Fort Sumter was on April 12, 1861. It's located in Charleston, South Carolina. It's a coastal garrison, particularly located to guard an area, home base, or fort. The Confederacy started the fort. most famous for the first shots of the Civil War. Abe Lincoln knew that the South was running out of supplies, so he sent 3 unarmed ships down there. The Confederacy saw the ships sent as an aggressive attack. Confederate General Pierre Gustave Touant bombarded the fort on April 12, 1861, and they fired for 34 hours. It was against Abe Lincoln and the Confederate, South versus the North. The Confederacy was run by Major Robert Anderson. The Confederacy abandoned the fort, and the North got Fort Sumter. The South had surrendered. How many died is unknown.
Around 4 months later, on August 10, 1861, the Battle of Wilson's Creek started. It started in Missouri, which was the first battle west of the Mississippi. The terrain may have influenced the battle because it was on a creek, so there was a lot of drinking water and cleaning water. The South General Nathaniel Lyons attacked the Confederate. The Union had around 5,400 soldiers. General Sterling Price was the Confederate leader. The Federals suffered 1,317, while the Confederates suffered 1,222. The outcome was that the Confederates won and they beat the Union. Although the exact dates of the Underground Railroad are not known, we do know that the Underground Railroad was starting to be mentioned in 1831. African Americans and white people used the Underground Railroad. It escaped slaves from the south to the north. It started in Kentucky and went to Boston. If anyone was caught in the Underground Railroad, the Fugitive Slave Act would have returned them to the South. Harriet Tubman was a conductor who helped African Americans escape. This influenced the war and how it transported the slaves, trying to get them out of the South. This was a major reason that the Civil War started.
The telegraph was invented in 1854, and that's when Morse code started to be used. The North used this way of talking and letting the men out on the battlefield know what to do and what tactics to use and what was going on. They could send messages and they could also receive them. So the telegraph was how they had something they would type and they would have to listen to the noises of how they typed it. If you typed a certain noise, that would go to like A or B or C, and they had breakdowns, so you had to like listen very well. And that's when telephone poles and like the telephone wires are being invented.